Now this looks promising.
What's up, football fans? It's your friendly Swede with the stats back again for another match fact-based player review. This time it's time for a player who was part of the team of the week from 2 weeks ago. It's a Premier League defender that got his second in form. It's Shridan Mustafi. Shrutan Mustafi. Scrotum Mustafi. Anyway, it's the German defender from Arsenal who doesn't have 27 pace. I've based my review this time on 35 games played, an amount of games that should be enough to create a solid view of a player's in-game performance. I ran a quick poll on Twitter where most of you thought that 20 games should be a minimum limit to base a review on. And even though it's probably so that the more game you play, the better you learn how a player performs, I agree that during a course of 20 games you should be able to get a good feel for a card. I've played Mustafi in both my Bundesliga team alongside Socrates, where he gets 8 chemistry, and obviously my Premier League team right now alongside Bailly, where he gets 10 chemistry obviously. And we're going to look at how the different squads has performed later when we go through the game result stats. Let's just quickly run through these base and in-game stats so we know what we're dealing with here. He hasn't got phenomenal pace, but I think a minimum of 70 pace is needed for a central defender to work, and his 71 pace is decent. 70 passing, 66 dribbling, not great, but instead he has really nice 87 defending and 84 physique, which is a very nice combo for a central defender. And if we look at the in-game stats, it becomes even clearer that he is a very competent defender, this German. 89 interceptions, 85 marking, 87 standing tackles and 89 sliding tackles, combined with 89 jumping and 86 strength are really good. Also worth mentioning here is his 85 short passing, which is a good option if you want to play your way out of high pressure. I really recommend Shadow Chemistry style on this card to give him that extra pace of 83 total pace stat. And also look at his defending in-game stats here, that gives us most stats at 99 when we apply that Shadow card. I think what's a little bit concerning, defensive stats apart, is that he has relatively low agility and balance that could affect his ability to follow a striker smoothly or cause him to lose the ball more easily when in fights over the ball. So that could be a concern. But let's compare him to other Premier League options, shall we? Compared to Vincent Kompany, he has better pace and slightly better defensive stats overall. Toby Alderweireld is a very comparable card to Mustafi, but he has slightly lower pace and less physique too, but he has better marking and better standing tackles. David Luiz is another popular option, but he's slightly behind Mustafi in most stats here. But he is the one out of these 4 with best agility and has best long shots. So, jumping into the match-based stats then. As you can see in the dashboard here, he scored once during these 35 games, but I've chosen not to compare the more attacking stats this time. Central defenders, they will score now and again on corners mainly, but it's not really that trait we are looking for in defenders, is it? As I've mentioned, I've played him in 2 different squads. The Premier League squad where he played 21 games and the Bundesliga squad where he played 14 games. And the win-loss rate is rather equal over these 2 squads. And as you can see, I actually had a negative win rate over these 35 games. Goals scored and conceded here are very equal between the 2 squads. So with these things taken into comparison, I think we can conclude that the stats over these 35 games are very equal over the 2 different squads. So let's start comparing the passing stats, actually more relevant than you might think for defenders. The orange piles here are the fullbacks and the blue ones are central defenders. And as you can see, Mustafi is 3rd among the central defenders after Bailly and Koscielny. And I don't feel he misplaces many passes, and his 85 short passing should come in handy here. It's a bit surprising then to see that it's a bit behind here on successful passing percentage. This could be explained by his relatively fewer games compared to the other ones, but I still think that 35 games should be enough to see a trend here. And as you can see, he's 10th overall for defender and 6th among central defenders.
Neatly intercepted. Defender has the big
Tackles per game next, and these are the most crucial stats, I think. The blue pile here shows us the average number of successful tackles per game, probably the most important stat of them all when comparing defenders, while the orange shows the average number of attempted tackles per game. So with his 1.1 average successful tackle per game, he's right now joint second behind Bailly, who has a pretty secure lead in this table. In comparison, I can say that for FIFA 17, the top tackler then, which was Toby Alderweireld, he had 1.9 successful tackles per game. And I'm actually rather surprised Mustafi wasn't higher up in the standings here, because my feeling from playing with him was that he made a lot more successful tackles than any of my other defenders. But I think this comes from the fact that they have a thing for making those really crucial ones, like exactly when an opposing player are close to breaking through, or tackle blocks for clear shots, etc. Which makes me wonder, if a block through a sliding tackle, would that count as a successful tackle or not when looking at the stats after a game? I would say that stats for interception and blocks would have been great here as a complement to actual tackles. The next one will show us the relation between the two previous stats in the form of percentage of tackles that are successful. And as you can see, he's top of the pile here with 63% successful tackle, which is a very good stat. I did compare average game rating too, but I'm not sure how relevant it is since they all score very similar here, between 7.4 and 7.9 average match rating. But on the other hand, he's not top here, and he has some work to do if he is to reach Danny Rose in the top. Last thing to look at would be consistency. This time we're looking at successful tackles per each of these 35 games. And apart from a few holes here early in his career at my club, it's been quite consistent, with at most 3 successful tackles per game, which happen at 3 games of these 35. 2 successful tackles per games he had in 8 games. And for 11 games he had no successful tackles at all. But mind you, those games are normally games where I have won big. So, now for the verdict. The feeling after having played with him for 35 games is that he is a very good central defender. I was very surprised actually to see that he was not in top for average tackles per game. He's often in the right position and makes those really crucial tackles and blocks more than anyone else. He's also very powerful and he doesn't lose many heading duels against strikers. He sometimes loses the ball and his first touch is not perfect, but it feels very secure and always where he should be. So to summarize things, his biggest pros would be his overall good tackling, both standing tackles and sliding tackles. His placement, where he always seems to be exactly where he should be. His heading ability to clear crosses. And that ability to always make those most important interceptions. His only cons, as I have found it, is his relatively low agility and balance, which sometimes makes him lose the ball a little too easy. But in the grading scale that I'm using, I've scored him a 7. He's very good for me, but in order to have him to score a really high grade, I would have wanted him to be above 1.7 average tackles per game, and he's not there yet. I think I might revisit him after 100 games to see where he's at then. So that's all for today. I hope you've enjoyed another player review based on actual game stats from me, that's StatSwede. And if you like this type of content, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Also, make sure you follow me on Twitter, that's StatSwede. Until next time, see ya!